Good evening, YouTube, and welcome back once again to The Edward. I'm your host, Eddie, and in tonight's video, I will be doing my episode review and recap for episode 4 of season 2 of The Strain. Now, before I begin, as usual, this episode review and recap will be full of pretty big spoilers. So if you are not caught up on The Strain, or if you are behind a few episodes, do not watch or continue listening to this video, as I will be discussing pretty big spoilers. That being said, this episode got off to kind of a weird start, because at first I thought to myself as I was watching it, am I on the right channel here? This is FX, right? I mean, that's what I was watching, and sure enough, you know, at the bottom of the corner there it says FX The Strain. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's this horribly made, intentionally made to look like it's a horribly made black and white film from the 50s or 60s, this Latino black and white film with Spanish dialogue, and this guy referred to as the Silver Angel, and it's like this Mexican wrestler who fights a vampire in the wrestling ring and then chases the vampire back to his castle, fights his human assistant, fights off these female vampires, and it's like this super cheesy, really like Ed Wood version of like almost like Plan 9 from outer space of how bad the quality of the film is. And you know, of course, the reveal is that there's the old guy who's obviously the actor who played the Silver Angel in that movie. He's watching his old movie in the basement of a restaurant somewhere because he's wearing a kitchen attire with a white apron, and he has a bad limp. So like, oh, okay, wonder who this guy is and what kind of role he plays, so we'll see. So this episode was about to see whether or not F and Nora's new strain will infect the infected. In the last episode, they were able to prove and get their new strain to work, which will infect the Strigoi and hopefully kill them off one by one. So with Fett's help, they release the male. They release the male Strigoi that they had in their lab. They release him, and they release him intentionally near the entrance of a well-known nest in the neighborhood, a Strigoi nest. But he doesn't go for the nest right away. He goes back towards a psychiatric hospital, and they follow him inside, and sure enough, he's snuggled up with his fellow Strigoi who have also taken roost there. So they leave him alone, and they decide to come back later that night to see whether or not the new virus they created is working or not, whether or not their guinea pig Strigoi will infect the rest of the Strigoi. So we'll see. You know, looks hopeful, so fingers crossed. And then Councilwoman Justine Feraldo continues her pledge and support to clean out New York one block at a time. And this time she pledges the support of her peacekeepers, as she calls them, these guys who are basically like private citizens wearing these red bands with a biohazard symbol on it. And they're supposed to be like peacekeepers for these infected neighborhoods, and she pleads with the people of New York, especially Red Hook, since now that's the area, the neighborhood that they're cleaning out. And Fett is actually pleased to see this, because he doesn't seem to think it'll affect him and his allies' efforts to continue to destroy the Strigoi. Destroy the Strigoi. So it's good. It's good to see that action has come to their neighborhood, or is it? Meanwhile, Dutch, who is obviously still feeling horrible about the fact that she helped the Master and his minions crash the internet way back in Season 1, thus plunging New York into a total media communications blackout. She shut down the internet, she took down everything, and obviously she feels bad about that, which is why she's now on the good guys team. So through her hacking abilities, she reveals to Abraham that she managed to find out that Fitzwilliam, Palmer's bodyguard and right-hand man, quit the Stoneheart group, and he has a brother living on Staten Island. And Dutch points out the importance of how vitally important it is that they go to speak to Mr. Fitzwilliam about Palmer and any kind of weaknesses he has in any of his secrets, because they realize they have a new ally, since Fitzwilliam kind of pretty much betrayed Palmer by quitting on him, because Fitzwilliam was obviously a man of a conscience and with morality to him, unlike Palmer. And he tried to plead with his employer to not go down this dark path of this path of darkness towards everlasting evil, but Palmer wouldn't listen. So now that's why Fitzwilliam left, and he's rejoined his brother, who is a firefighter on Staten Island. So Abraham and Dutch leave Fett's house to go off and search for Mr. Fitzwilliam. And it cuts to another flashback, going back to Vienna of March of 1966, where both a young Strachey and a young Palmer think they have a really good lead on the book that contains the information of how to effectively, positively kill a Strigoi. And just also containing lots and lots of other information regarding the Strigoi. So young Abraham summons the young Palmer to say, hey, I got a really good lead on this book. Let's go to Austria. And that's where they go. They find this monastery, I believe it is, and they find this one surviving boy, this boy who's becoming a monk, and all the other monks and the nuns there have turned into Strigoi. And while Abraham chases off after the young boy, when he's scared off by Strigoi, he leaves Palmer, who's wheelchair bound, by the way, on his own, armed with one knife. And then Eichhorst appears, basically giving Palmer a choice, a chance to seek the eternal life that he so longingly craves. And we don't see what happens between them, because it cuts back to a young Abraham who is tracking the young boy down into the basement, where he encounters several monk Strigoi. And he's looking for the boy, and he finds the boy, staying within the safety of the sunlight, and because the Strigoi can't reach him. And there's this great scene where the boy does escape from the basement, but a Strigoi chases him, and after Abraham struggles and cuts off a few heads with a couple of other Strigoi, this is probably one of my favorite kills so far. He takes his silver cane and throws it at the Strigoi chasing the boy, and it goes right through it. He's like, and it just, of course, bends over and dies because of the silver. And I'm like, oh, that was a great kill. That was a really great kill. But I really enjoyed that part. That was a lot of fun. And then when Abraham returns to Palmer, he finds him alive and okay and alone. No sign of Eichhorst. And Palmer's whole tone and mood seems to have changed. He suddenly seems quite bitter and angry that this book is no longer around. Oh, because before the boy took off, he revealed to both men that one of the nuns had actually destroyed the book, supposedly, saying that it was evil, full of evil things, and needed to be destroyed and wiped off the face of the earth completely, so she burned it. And that was disheartening to both Strachey and Palmer, mostly to Strachey, who was hoping to track down the master and find him once and for all, and find out, most importantly, how to kill him, and to Palmer as well, but devastated for other reasons, because now he may never know the secrets to immortality through vampirism. But, of course, we know he found another way since he met Mr. Eichhorst, who looked exactly the same as he has always looked on the show. So that's the quick flashback we got, and I think we got that just to refresh and remind the viewers that Palmer and Abraham have history. So Dutch and Abraham managed to track down Mr. Fitzwilliam and his brother, and they all meet in a place. And I like how Abraham's line where he points out to Fitzwilliam how he's a good person and he can sever this long line stretching back to his parents, this long line of misguided loyalty. Because he's like, there's no reason to protect Palmer anymore. He's practically evil. He always has been evil. There's no point in protecting him or serving him, because you're the one. He points out to Fitzwilliam, you left him. You willingly chose to leave him and rot away in his tower and deal with the Strigoi and whatever. And I think he and Dutch really try to make a case of how Mr. Fitzwilliam has a chance to really redeem himself, because he spent all that time serving Palmer, carrying out his orders and whatnot. In fact, Going back to season 1, Palmer originally wanted Fitzwilliam and his security team to kill Dutch and Fett when they attempted to infiltrate the Stoneheart group to spy on them. But Fitzwilliam actually let them go, saying how the security team were loyal to him and not to Palmer, and they wouldn't say anything about letting Dutch and Fett go. And Fett tries to get Fitzwilliam to come along, but Fitzwilliam tells him, no, I have to stay, I have to stop him, or I have to talk him out of this. But as we saw at the end of season 1, Fitzwilliam left, and in season 2, he's reunited with his brother, and now our two of our main characters have managed to track him down to convince him to join their team. So cutting back to that, now that it's daylight hours and it's safer to move about, Nora suggests that F kind of takes the day off since they spent the whole night, trying to come up with a new strain to infect the Strigoi, and she suggests bonding time with Zach, which makes a lot of sense because he and Zach have had serious problems lately. Zach most likely blaming and resenting him for Kelly's transformation from a woman into a Strigoi. And, F just being a completely distant, unreliable father, like he's always been, even before the vampire apocalypse. He has not always been the best father, so they're really trying to reconnect with each other. And so they go to a batting cage. I'm like, oh, all right, that makes sense. Seems like fun for a dad and his son. But as we quickly find out, it's not a very fun place. In fact, it brings back memories, good memories, but painful memories for Zach when he remembers when he and his parents went there. Obviously, F and Kelly were still together, where they went there on a family outing and were at the batting cage. And with that memory, Zach is unable to hit the baseballs that are shot at him out of the pitching machine in the batting cage, and F is watching this, like how Zach is totally unresponsive, and he tries a couple swings at first and fails miserably. But he's like, no, I can't. The look on his face is like, I can't do this, Dad. This is too painful. This is where we were with Mom at one point. I can't do it. And F, disappointed, is like, all right, let's go home. And he can tell that Zach's in a lot of pain. So he's like, well, it was a good try, but maybe it's just too soon. And meanwhile, while all this is happening, Palmer is holding a meeting with the heads of the Federal Reserve in their headquarters building in New York, and he's basically telling them how he's so happy they've all come together to come up with a solution to make New York profitable again, and reliquidate its liquidity and its assets. Basically, get the economy up and running again is their goal here. And as a reporter is reporting on the meeting that's just adjourned, with Palmer talking to all of the big bosses at the Federal Reserve and how they have this new plan to rejuvenate New York's economy and get the city back on its feet. All of a sudden, oh my God, Strigoi attack, and they start killing and attacking all of the Federal Reserve bosses while Palmer safely sits in his limousine and watches all of it. Sure enough, he gets like a little nod from Bolivar, who's there, the heavy metal star who's now an acting servant of the master. He and the rest of his Strigoi squadron basically attack and kill all of the big bosses at the Federal Reserve, and now poor Palmer's plan of rejuvenating the economy and getting New York back on track just won't work. Of course, we all know that's exactly what Palmer had intended, as this was clearly a trap to lure out the bosses of the Federal Reserve so the Strigoi could get at them and kill them, thus leaving New York even a worse state than it already is in, with all the Strigoi running around. Speaking of Strigoi, Gus goes back to his apartment, and his mother is still there, still a Strigoi. And poor Gus, he is tough, but he just cannot bring himself to kill his own mother, and I personally don't blame him. I mean, honestly, looking at it, if our mothers had turned either into a zombie or a vampire or whatever, would you really have the heart and soul to take her out? Because it's not her anymore, but it still looks like her. And the poor guy, he just couldn't do it. And of course, the master takes advantage of this opportunity and speaks through his mother to Gus, taunting him about how he was such a failure in her eyes, how he disappointed her, broke her heart, and he reminds Gus of all of this shit just to get at him, just to really make him feel bad. And Gus is like, screw this, screw you, man. And he leaves, he grabs a few items, he leaves the apartment and locks it up so his mother can't get out and infect anybody. He goes to an Indian cuisine restaurant where, lo and behold, that's where the Silver Angel is working. And there's a young woman working there who just refers to him as Angel. At first, I thought it was his daughter, but I think that he's just a coworker or a friend of the family, because this young woman and her mother seem to run the place. And I think her father is the cook in the back, the guy in the beginning of the episode who said to Angel, "Break's over, Angel, come on back up." And there's this Indian cuisine place, and the girl and Gus immediately have a little unspoken attraction to each other, because she's pretty hot, and he's pretty hot as well, I guess. But, Angel is giving him these nasty looks and implying how he, he asks him, "What do you want?" He's like, "Can I get something to eat? You got the cash?" It's like, Angel is looking down on him, basically. At first I thought it might have been a racial thing, because I thought, like the other people in the restaurant, that maybe Angel was Indian or Hindu, and he was, like, prejudiced toward Latinos, which Gus is. But I realized, wait, Angel's Latino too, so this is just a class thing. He's looking down on Gus like he's a second-class citizen, because he looks like a hood or a thug who's there to rob them or something. So he's obviously already really suspicious of him, keeps shooting him dirty looks throughout while Gus is there at the restaurant. But later, Gus returns later that night, because honestly he has nowhere else to stay or to go. And when he tries to stay, that's when the girl's mother starts causing problems and telling her daughter, "I don't want you hanging out or talking to him. He's no good. He can't stay here. He has to go." And of course, Angel's like, "Time for you to go, pal. Get lost." As right as they're about to scuffle, something in Gus makes him do one of these moves, like, "Wait a minute, do I know you?" Like, he instantly recognizes him, but doesn't say anything. Gus cools off, and he says to him, he's like, "It's not worth it," and he leaves. Later, Angel is throwing out the trash in the dumpster in the alley, and then, of course, Gus is right there, because Gus reveals to him, "Dude, I know who you are. You're the Silver Angel." And it turns out Gus is a big fan of the Silver Angel. He reflects on his career, and he talks about the crappy movie that we saw in the beginning of the episode, of how when the Silver Angel injured his knee on that movie, and it ruined and ended his career. And, Gus is trying to tell him what a fan he is, but, of course, the Silver Angel is just denying this and tells him to get the hell out of here and don't come back. And Gus is kind of, distraught. He's like, "What the fuck, man? I'm a big fan here. I'm trying to tell you how much I enjoyed your work. I really enjoyed watching you as the Silver Angel, the wrestler, the actor." And then Gus departs. Meanwhile, Fett, Nora, and F return to the psychiatric hospital where they had left their guinea pig Strigoi, except he's gone along with the other nesting Strigoi in that building. But Fett decides that he's going to continue with his original plan to blow up and seal off the entrance to one of the main subway tracks that connects Red Hook to the rest, that connects the Red Hook neighborhood to the rest of the city. So he goes off and does that. He leaves the bread truck for Nora and F as they continue their search for their Strigoi guinea pig. Sure enough, they find him slowly weakening and dying, boils all over his face, and the infection is working. Their infection is working. And sure enough, nearby, there's Strigoi who are throwing themselves off of the edge of an apartment building, and F surmises that it's the Master commanding them to commit suicide, because the Master knows that F and Nora's virus is working and is effectively killing the Strigoi, and the Master is making the infected Strigoi kill themselves so they don't infect the others. But it's kind of a victorious moment for F and Nora, mostly F, because he gets a big feeling of satisfaction. Like, this is almost like a big fuck you to the Master. And of course, this is great for him because he hates the Master and wants revenge for turning his ex-wife into a monster. And, so it's a big happy moment for F. And Nora's kind of happy too, but she's mostly disgusted by it. But they return to the lab and, they start drinking. And, of course, F can't stop drinking. But, he's really pleased and happy with the results. He finds his son asleep listening to music by Bolivar, of all people, which F kind of shakes off, like, tucks his son into bed. And, they're happy. And unfortunately, things don't go as well for Mr. Fett, and he has a funny moment where he refers to himself as Wile E. Coyote when he lights his dynamite in the subway. But as he's walking away, a group of the curfew enforcers, because the Red Hook is now under curfew, or as Nora refers to it, martial law, which is basically private citizens, like I said earlier, with the red armbands with the biohazard symbol, and they start hassling Fett, asking him what he's doing down here in the subway. And before Fett can get away, of course, he's fairly confident and cocky in himself, and the entrance that he set off to blows up, of course. And, he tries to make an argument like, hey, I just helped you guys. I helped you contain the problem here. Now this way the Strigoi won't be able to spread. But they jump him, they exchange a few blows here and there. Unfortunately, they overpower Fett, and he's taken away into custody. Hopefully they don't do anything too harmful to him, but they take him away. So that's what happened in this most recent episode. And, of course, it concludes with Kelly and... I guess they're referring to the blind children who became Strigoi as the Feelers. An appropriate but also kind of disturbing name. She and the Feelers are now picking up on Zach's trail, his scent, because sure enough they're at the batting cage and they're sniffing the bats that Zach was holding earlier when he was there with his dad, and Kelly recognizes the place and she realizes that they're getting closer. Which is not good for our heroes, because once Kelly finds their hideout, then the Master will practically send every single Strigoi to attack that house, to attack Fett's apartment, where all of our main characters are at. So overall, good episode. I'm curious to see as to what the Silver Angel will become a part of. If I remember correctly, I'm not that familiar with the graphic novel, but I think he becomes a pretty big part of the story somehow. I won't go into spoilers for those of you who do not watch the graphic novel, but I think this guy becomes a pretty important character in the fight against the Strigoi. So I'll leave that at that. But overall, good episode. Really liked it. I think my favorite moment would have been when young Abraham hurled his silver cane into the Strigoi and it pierced it through the back, and that was pretty awesome. And lots of good Strigoi kills in this episode. A lot of them. Well, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Strain as much as I did. It keeps getting more and more interesting with each episode, and I'm really looking forward to see what's going to happen for the rest of the season. Thanks for tuning in and watching, and please don't forget to subscribe and comment and like this video. Leave your thoughts and opinions down below. What was your favorite part? What did you enjoy? Are there any characters you like or dislike? What do you think is going to happen to Fett? Do you think this new infection that Nora and F have introduced to the Strigoi population will continue, remain consistent, or will it fall apart and be all for nothing? So leave your thoughts and opinions down below. I'd love to hear from everybody what you think about this show so far, about Season 2 overall. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, and have a great night. And of course, until next time, may the Force be with you.